What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the career of actor Matt Damon. Before I talk about his huge breakout movie, I want to highlight the early underseen work of Matt Damon. In 1992, he played Charlie in School Ties, who is jealous of star quarterback David Green, played by Brendan Fraser. Damon is the villain of the movie and one of the best things about it, and he would definitely go on to play characters like this in the future. School Ties is a very good movie that is often overshadowed by Dead Poets Society, a movie Damon himself auditioned for. Next, you have Courage Under Fire from director Ed Zwick, where Damon plays specialist Ilario, who doesn't want to relive what happened during the Gulf War. This is a real transformation for the actor. He lost a lot of weight and shared the screen with the likes of Denzel Washington and Meg Ryan, and more than holds his own. And finally, you have one of my personal favorites, Francis Ford Coppola's The Rainmaker. I believe this to be one of the best leading performances of Matt Damon's career. He has a great southern accent and has great chemistry with co-star Claire Danes. Even if those three movies aren't your favorite, I think they show you what Matt Damon was capable of becoming. I mean, you see why this guy has become not only one of the best movie stars in the world, but also an actor with an incredible amount of range that sometimes gets overlooked. That gets me to the movie that made him a movie star, 1997's Good Will Hunting, a movie he not only starred in but co-wrote with Ben Affleck. It paired him with a massive star in the late great Robin Williams. His love interest is played brilliantly by Minnie Driver. This movie just gives everything Damon is capable of. He can be funny with the "how about them apples" moment. He can be cruel when he shouts at Stellan Skarsgård's Lambo, "Do you know how easy this is for me?" And he can really bring the drama, like when he has a meltdown when he's asked by driver Skyler to move to California. There's no argument that the movie that's best going to be remembered in the year 1997 is going to be the Titanic. But the definitive number two, I believe, has become Good Will Hunting. It was a movie that was big during the moment. It was the 7th highest grossing film of the year 1997, and it is far and away a movie that has lived on well after that. And no movie could ever overlap it as the definitive film of Matt Damon's career. It's always going to be the movie he's going to be best remembered for, and that to me is a very good thing. Yes, sometimes it's fun to have a conversation about an actor and you don't all agree on what their best movie is, but with Matt Damon, it's Good Will Hunting. It's an iconic film. It has reached that level of fanfare that very few other movies have reached. The 2 years after Good Will Hunting, Damon found great success. First, in Saving Private Ryan as the titular character. It's a supporting role, but he's also in a movie that has an ongoing legacy. And that same year in 98, he was the lead of Rounders, a movie that wasn't a hit at the time, but because of him and Ed Norton, people still talk about it. And in 99, he's in Kevin Smith's Dogma, working once again with Ben Affleck, and he's also in The Talented Mr. Ripley as Tom Ripley. I, like many, believe this to be one of his best movies, especially all of Matt Damon's scenes with Jude Law. It's a movie with so many rising stars at the time. Matt Damon, Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, fresh off an Oscar, the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Cate Blanchett. Then you get to a time in Matt Damon's career that doesn't get talked about enough. The individual movies get brought up all of the time, and it's when he was a key figure in not one but two franchises at the same time, beginning with the Oceans movies, with 2001's Oceans 11, 2004's Oceans 12, and Oceans 13 in 2007, playing Linus Caldwell, and of course the Jason Bourne movies, with 2002's The Bourne Identity, 2004's The Bourne Supremacy, 2007's Bourne Ultimatum, and I don't really like this one, but I have to mention 2016's Jason Bourne. I mean, for a time period, Matt Damon really had it all. He had a franchise which he was co-starring with Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and was the lead of his own action franchise. I don't know if this is a hot take, but my favorite Bourne movie is the original Bourne Identity. I like the romantic element, and of course the fight with Clive Owen. It has to be said that Matt Damon won big with these franchises in the filmmakers that directed them, Steven Soderbergh in the Ocean's films, and Doug Liman and Paul Greengrass, not to mention the fact that those films were written by the great Tony Gilroy. And just to give you the significance of these franchises, 5 of Matt Damon's highest grossing films are from them. Ocean's 11 made $450 million. The Bourne Ultimatum, $444 million. Jason Bourne, $415 million. Ocean's 12, $362 million. And Ocean's 13 made $311 million at the box office. To put it simply, without these 2 franchises, Matt Damon is not the same movie star he is today. There's not that many actors who have 2 franchises happening at the same time. The only other name I could think of is when Jennifer Lawrence was in the Hunger Games and the X-Men First Class films during the same period. These movies had it all for Matt Damon. He was culturally relevant, he was getting praise for the performances, and the movies were making a boatload of money. And not to get on a side tangent here, but I think that's what's missing from Ben Affleck's career, Matt Damon's best friend. I mean, Ben Affleck never had a franchise that hit, even though he attempted to be Daredevil, he attempted to be Jack Ryan, and later on, he attempted to be Batman. None of those ever got as big as Damon in the Ocean's films and Damon as Jason Bourne. With every actor the caliber of Matt Damon, there's great successes, and there are films that just don't resonate. The movies of his that don't work, you understand why they made them, because of the filmmaker. Movies like The Legend of Bagger Vance with Robert Redford, All the Pretty Horses with Billy Bob Thornton, The Brothers Grimm with Terry Gilliam, and Downsizing with Alexander Payne. Matt Damon is very much like Leonardo DiCaprio in that he is trying to work with the great filmmakers of our time. Most of his choices are dependent on who is directing the movie. And that's how you end up being in more hits than misses. With most male actors, people like to ask the question, are they a leading man or are they a character actor? And Matt Damon, for as big of a name as he is, has made a strong case that he's both. He can be your typical protagonist in movies like 2006's The Good Shepherd, an underrated movie about the CIA, 2015's The Martian, a movie he's asked to carry. He's, of course, for the most part on his own. Here's what Damon told Willie Geist on his Sunday Sit Down podcast about why he was at first hesitant to be in the movie. Quote, I remember when Ridley called me about The Martian, I went to see him and I said, Ridley, I can't do this movie. He goes, what do you mean? I go, I just played a guy stranded on a planet for Chris Nolan. I go, I can't turn around and the next thing I do is a guy stranded on another planet. And Ridley goes, oh, no one gives a bleep about that, end quote. I, for one, could not imagine the career of Matt Damon without the film The Martian. This is one of my favorite films of his career. I have rewatched this movie an awful lot. And it feels like with the upcoming release of Project Hail Mary that people will also be revisiting this one soon. Next, you have 2023's Air, one of the best recent sports movies directed by Matt Damon's pal Ben Affleck. These are 3 leading performances that set the entire tone for the movie. Then on the opposite side of the spectrum of his movie star persona, you have 2010's True Grit from the Coen brothers. I mean, this is just Matt Damon having a good time with Haley Steinfeld and Jeff Bridges. Again, I'm not here to give the hot takes, but I think True Grit is the far better film from the Coen brothers than No Country for Old Men. Then you have 2021's The Last Duel, a movie he co-wrote with Ben Affleck and Nicola Holofcener. During his character chapters, he views himself as a hero. I would also like to mention in that same year, he had a leading performance in the film film Stillwater. It's a leading turn, but it is so different from anything you've ever seen from Matt Damon. I highly recommend that film as well. And finally, and possibly the most character role of his career, you have 2023's Oppenheimer. Most of the comedy of this film comes from Matt Damon's scenes with Cillian Murphy. It's long been my opinion that Matt Damon is one of the best actors who have yet to win an Oscar for acting. Yes, he won for co-writing Good Will Hunting. 3 times he's been nominated for acting: Best Leading Actor for Good Will Hunting, Best Supporting Actor for Invictus, and Best Leading Actor for The Martian. It's my opinion that he should have also gotten nominated for The Talented Mr. Ripley and for The Departed. Obviously, if I was going to pick his win, it would have been for Good Will Hunting. I mean, the winner of that year was Jack Nicholson for As Good as It Gets, a guy who had already won 2 acting Oscars to his name. The best leading performance of 1997 was without a doubt Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting. And that gets me to why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place. For a couple of years now, I kind of thought that Matt Damon was done being the ultimate leading man because he had taken supporting roles in movies like Ford v Ferrari, a film that I love, and Oppenheimer. I guess what I'm saying is I kind of thought the days of Matt Damon competing for an Oscar were over. And then it was announced that he's the lead of the next Christopher Nolan movie, The Odyssey, starring as Odysseus. This is the movie that got me to want to talk about the career of Matt Damon, because I think there's a chance that this is the film that cements his legacy as a leading man and ultimately gets him to an Oscar victory. Christopher Nolan has a history of helping actors win Oscars. The late, great Heath Ledger won for playing the Joker in The Dark Knight. Cillian Murphy won for playing J. Robert Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer, and Robert Downey Jr., of course, won for playing Louis Strauss in Oppenheimer as well. It should come to the surprise of absolutely no one that I am a massive, massive fan of Christopher Nolan. He's my favorite director. But the thing that has me the most excited about The Odyssey is Matt Damon, because this feels like a role that's going to combine everything about his career. This is a movie star role. He is the lead of a gigantic movie, but it's The Odyssey from Christopher Nolan, so it's also most likely going to be a huge player at the Oscars. Matt Damon himself was asked for a career turning point by Krista Smith on the podcast Skip Intro with Krista Smith, and this was his response, quote, "I do think that this last experience of The Odyssey I'm still kind of unpacking it, but it did have a profound effect on me because if I look objectively at what was required to do that job, I think it came at just the right time in my life. I think I would have been miserable 20 years ago trying to do that job, you know." End quote. That is what is so fascinating about his involvement in The Odyssey, is the timing of it all. It really feels like it could be the crowning moment of Matt Damon's career. Maybe that's hyperbole, but think about how big this movie could be. The Odyssey has the potential to be a movie that makes over $1 billion, a movie that many think has the potential to win Best Picture, and if it does, you're telling me Matt Damon does not have a chance of winning his first acting Oscar? I don't think so. There are 2 actors who have a lot to gain from the film The Odyssey, and they are as followed: the aforementioned Matt Damon and Tom Holland, who is trying to establish that he can be in big movies outside of the Spider-Man films. But I'll admit, I find the Matt Damon of it all far more interesting than the Tom Holland. Maybe it's silly to say, but I think a year from now, we could be talking about Matt Damon in a completely different way. This could be a revitalization of Matt Damon as a gigantic movie star, because it feels like during this time period, he can be in a really good movie and get overlooked. Not that many people talked about the movie Stillwater. I loved the movie Air. I don't know how big that movie was. The Last Duel was overlooked. Ford v Ferrari, the talk was all about Christian Bale, and maybe rightfully so. This is the first movie in quite a while that is going to come down to Matt Damon as an actor. Probably his biggest acting challenge since The Martian. And if he were making the Odyssey with any other filmmaker, I would look at it as like a huge risk. But he's making it with none other than Christopher Nolan, who is pairing him with an all-time great cast. Anne Hathaway, Charlize Theron, Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, Jon Bernthal. I think it's worth mentioning that after Tenet, everybody felt like Christopher Nolan no longer cares about the leading characters of his movies. I mean, the lead of Tenet is literally called the protagonist. And then he comes back with Oppenheimer, and Cillian Murphy gives the performance of a lifetime, and the same feels like it's happening with the Odyssey. Like, I feel like this movie is built to succeed on the back of Matt Damon. I don't know, maybe this is hyperbole, but I believe this is the biggest opportunity of Matt Damon's career, and I think it's happening at the best time of his career, because I agree with him. He's ready to play a role like Odysseus with real gravitas that he wouldn't have been able to do 10 years ago. At the beginning of this podcast, I was talking about the fact that I do not believe there is a movie capable of catapulting Good Will Hunting as the definitive movie of Matt Damon's career. Is it possible that the Odyssey has the best chance? Because this is going to get the most eyeballs on it than any other Matt Damon-led film. And that is not a huge proclamation. I don't think it's crazy to say that this is without a doubt going to end up being the highest grossing film of Matt Damon's career. When so many people have the conversations about who the last movie stars are, they bring up the names Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, and Denzel Washington. If the Odyssey is as big as everyone believes it's going to be, Matt Damon will enter that conversation. That's how big of a deal this movie could potentially end up being to the career of Matt Damon. That's why I believe right now is a good inflection point to talk about his career, because I think there is a before the Odyssey and after the Odyssey. Because I'm from New England, I'll admit there is a real bias here towards Matt Damon. He is a figure that has been prominent. I have seen most of his filmography. I love the film Good Will Hunting. Having said that, though, I also believe him to be one of the most consistent actors of his generation. And he is one of those actors who makes movies you expect him to make, but then also every once in a while really surprises you. And this is a good place to end the podcast on. After I watched the movie Air, and I thought for a minute that he was going to get an Oscar nomination, and then he didn't, I had the thought, I think the end of Matt Damon's career is just going to be him in really good movies that do not get seen by a large amount of people. And then I was shocked and awed to hear that he was going to be the lead of the next Christopher Nolan movie. It's not a surprise that Matt Damon would want to be the lead of a Christopher Nolan movie. I just think the surprise is, at this point of his career, Matt Damon being the lead of a gigantic blockbuster film. It makes all the sense in the world for Christopher Nolan to want Matt Damon to be Odysseus in the Odyssey. It was just unexpected that at this moment, after having movies like Stillwater and The Last Duel that critics loved but were not seen by many people, that he would then be chosen to be the lead of the most anticipated film of 2026. Expectations could not be higher from this movie, and in my humble opinion, absolutely, and I mean absolutely, nobody has more to gain from its success than Matt Damon. I mean, the last number of his movies have been streaming-only films that, yes, are fun and I like to watch, but the Odyssey is going to be a massive, massive event. This could take him back to the days when he was in those two franchises, the Ocean's films and Jason Bourne. This could once again turn Matt Damon into one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Matt Damon is just going to be back in the limelight in a way that I never thought was going to happen again. The biggest director on the planet is making him the leading man of his next movie. I was beyond pumped when Cillian Murphy was announced as the lead of Oppenheimer, and I'm just as excited to see Matt Damon as Odysseus in the Odyssey. As you can tell, Matt Damon is one of my favorite actors. He has a tremendous filmography. I recommend you go back and re-watch some of his great works. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcast and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.